Alrighty, folks, I want to share my opinion about the upcoming Fed meeting with a 12-year Wall Street veteran, somebody who works with the top 1% of families across the country, because I want to know if I'm all wet, I'm just complaining, or maybe there's something behind my thesis. Taylor, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm not entirely sure where you're going with this, so hit me with it.
So I have two predictions for the Fed. First, I believe if the Fed meeting was to occur as expected on the 9th and 10th, more on that in a minute, because there's a plan B to this. I did an actual math on the 12 voting members. Today, I have 5 members voting for a cut. That would be Fed President Moran, Waller, Bowman, Williams, and Cook. I have 5 bears, meaning no cut: Barr, Musselman, Schmid, Goolsbee, and Collins. Then I have 2 unknowns: Powell and Jefferson. So my prediction for the Fed meeting, if it occurs and we hear about it on the 10th, so 9th and 10th, we are going to have a 7-5 or a 6-6 vote. And I went back and checked. The only 7-5 vote I can find was back in 1983. So it has happened before, but is extremely rare. So I'm going to stop there because, again, I think this Fed meeting is by no certain a cut or a hold. I think it's going to be razor thin. What say you?
Well, usually it's unanimous. So that gives you the enormity of what you're getting at there. And then if you mention 1983, you got to remember back at that time, we just went through one of the most vicious rate hike cycles we had ever seen and finally curbed inflation to a place that was palatable. So that tells you the dynamism of, if that's a word, dynamic nature is what I'm going for, of what would cause that to need to play out and have this very, very bifurcated Fed.
Yeah, and the good thing is on my channel, I've been telling people for a month that the Fed is bifurcated. Finally, this weekend, I went and spent about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, trying to figure out where I thought each Fed president was, because I do think it's clear cut. The Doves want to cut and the Hawks don't. And then we have a couple of people that are kind of in the middle that'll sway the vote. So again, I'm thinking it's going to go 7-5 to your point, be very, very odd, right? For the last 2 decades, we've had, I think, 8 dissensions. We've had two dissensions. We haven't had a 7-5 since 1983, and I'm not aware of one before that, so it's very rare. And I think it'll be interesting. And then if it goes down 6-6, you have any idea what happens at 6-6?
Jerome calls a shot?
No, there's no language in the Fed.
I thought Jerome called the shots to begin with anyway.
Yeah,
I'm joking, but yeah.
I think it is too. Yeah. So typically what would happen is they would either decide to revote, or a tie is no cut. A tie is do nothing. So they may revote, or it will be do nothing.
Trump steps in and decides.
Fed independence completely gone.
We're cutting a full point, a full percent.
It's wild. So again, I think this Fed meeting is going to go down as a, even if it goes, 8-4, it's still going to be, a game changer.
Anything more than 2 dissenting votes is going to be newsworthy because that hasn't happened.
Yeah, exactly. Now to my big ask, request, prayer, hymn, whatever you want to call it. Given the government shutdown, the most important data, again, for the Hawks and the Doves, is the jobs data. We did get a jobs report, but if you guys aren't paying attention, that was for September. That wasn't October, right? So the data is like really old. And oh, by the way, the unemployment rate came in at 4.44. And the Fed's target for the year was 4.5. So like we're 100th away from that. And oh, by the way, if you weren't paying attention, October had the most layoffs in like 40 years, like 158,000, 156,000. Not good. So I don't know why the Fed would not change the data they're meeting, because they're not going to have the data, right? The data is now going to come out on the 16th. So why the hell are they having a meeting on the 9th and 10th? It's just wild to me.
What was the date earlier this year? I want to say like late spring, early July, or early summer, when they presented and they made a decision. And I want to say it was
2 days later. Yeah,
the jobs market came in just despicably bad, and they should have cut.
That was
then
July.
They did cut the next month in August. There you go. You're exactly right. And it was like, why are we doing this in such illogical manner. It's not like we can't foresee when these data points are going to hit unless you get a shutdown like this, and at which point, change it. I'm with you. But even a point where things are perfectly scheduled, why do we have such illogical scheduling of these, hugely monumental interest rate decisions?
I think you're absolutely right. I had not even thought about the July report is a great example of the disaster that the December cut could be. I mean, just play this out. Because again, I want the Fed to change. I think they should. I think I'll go as far as to say it's malpractice not to change the date because of July. If you guys don't remember July was not only a bad month, but the revisions were horrible.
Revisions were the problem. Yeah.
Right. The revisions, as I recall, they were like a negative 157,000 across 2 or 3 months. It took 1 month negative.
Negative, right? It took the early, and it took the other two to like 13 and 15,000 job ads for the late spring month.
50, right, to like 13. I mean, come on, guys.
Exactly right.
Not a problem.
Yeah, we're pretty good, by the way. We're sourcing numbers from 6 months ago that we didn't know we were going to bring up on this call. Good work.
We've done this. We've done this before. Yeah. So again, I think it's malpractice. I think they have to change. I don't know why they wouldn't.
Oh, you're getting no debate on my end. I honestly had not thought of this until you had brought it up. But at the end of the day, it was just such a good case study back in July. They should have cut. They did not cut. Data comes out 2 days later and says, you guys are morons for not cutting. Why are we doing this? And now they've got a circus running in the market in just the news cycle, where earlier, a month ago, we had a 94% probability of a cut.
Yeah.
Early last week, one of the Fed presidents comes out and says, we've been running ahead of our 2% target for 4.5 years. Inflation's moving the wrong way.
Collins.
The comms, right? The odds probability drops to 36% for a December cut. The market pukes on itself from 94 to 36, seemingly overnight.
Yes.
Huge movement there.
Yep.
Then Friday, New York Fed president comes out and says, I think there is room to move in the short term on interest rates.
Yes.
And interest rate probability of a cut for December goes from 36 to 75 in about 45 minutes, and the market rallies like all hell. And we're like, what are you clowns doing? Just forcing and manipulating the market around. And I was talking, internally with my team. My brother's my lead partner on the team. He's like, dude, they didn't want to see the market continue to puke on itself. So they came out and gave a little chatter on the cut side, and then bang, things normalize.
Yeah. So I don't think the Fed will cut. I think they're a staunch organization who's built on tradition, and they don't think far ahead. They don't even remember July, which is sad because all they do is look in the rearview mirror, which is completely sad. If I had to pick today, my gut is no cut in December. I think they're going to be wrong again.
I agree with you, and I think there should be a cut in December.
Oh, agreed. Yes, they're not going to, but they should.
Yeah. So it is frustrating to say that the data could come out a week afterwards, and it could make us you and I look like morons, and the housing market's fine.
I'm used to it.
Been there before, right?
Yes, not a surprise.
Right. And then we could see that, okay, the jobs market's actually rebounding back upwards. We had softness in the jobs market last year around this time, for the record, too, which caused the cuts, right? Or politics caused the cuts, whichever way you want to call it. But there was softness to justify the cuts in the labor market last fall. And we cut. And then the market rebounded from a labor perspective. So we don't know how this is going to play out. The jobs market, one, I don't think the data is all that clean, even when it's relevant data. But two, it's harder to depict the direction of the labor market than I think people had originally forecasted and thought 2 years ago, 3 years ago. When we started to see withering, we thought it would happen more quickly, and it hasn't.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about this, because again, I think they should postpone, and part of the reason is just for the Fed presidents themselves, right? If we go 7.5, either cut or no cut, and then we get the data a week later, roughly half the Fed's going to look like an idiot.
Fair enough.
Right? Because it's going to scream, you shouldn't have, or it's going to scream, you should have. And half of them are going to look like morons. I mean, I don't know why any of them don't say, I can't vote until I get this data.
Right. Agreed. Someone step up to the plate. So with all that said, they're not going to do that. Yeah. And with all that said, it's going to be the first exciting Fed meeting that we've had in, I don't know, even the live meetings that we've been calling them in the past were hey, there's a 20% chance of XYZ happening. Now it's going to come in here darn near 50-50 unless something changes dramatically between now and, 2 weeks out or whatever it is.
Let me ask you this question, because again, this was just my research on the dissents. What do you think the chances are there's 4 dissents or more? 4 or more.
Call me an idiot, but I look at just past data to do it. I think that when they sit down for 2 straight days, someone's going to be convinced one way or the other. And I think it probably comes in less than that. But again,
Yeah, I think
you've done more research on, to be clear, you've done more research on this than I have.
Yeah. And I think that's a wise opinion, because again, just given the last 30 years of the Fed that you and I are familiar with, they've done their best to get behind the Fed chair, right? To show that unified front. And you're right. You got to go back to the 83, that's Paul Volcker era, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he was like, damn their torpedoes. And, we're going to, I'm going to fix this thing come hell or high water. So, yeah. And I don't get that. Let's be clear. Jerome Powell is not Paul Volcker. Let's just get that off the table. There's no comparison.
No. And Jerome Powell also, the Fed in general, their job is to walk the market in the direction of where they want it to be, which is so odd that last week there was such dissension of, hey, it looked earlier on that we weren't going to cut, and then at the end of the week, now we're going to cut. And so it's very odd to me that they're doing this as we get closer and closer to this December meeting. I would imagine what you're going to have is maybe 2 or 3 more comments come out that are directionally moving together. And so that will give more and more clarity as to whether they're going to cut or not cut. Otherwise, you go in 50-50, the market's going to move violently.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And again, the Fed blackout window, is that 1 week prior to their Fed meeting? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I was actually just contemplating that in the back of my head and saying, I don't actually know what the window is, but there's somewhere
it's
around
a week to 10 days. Yeah, something like that. It's a week.
Yeah.
To 10. And again, the meeting starts on the 9th. So you're talking somewhere between November 30th and December 2nd, the blackout period will start.
You got about a week. You got about a week from now that the comments should come and directionally get the market moving whichever way it's going to go.
So question for the audience. Do you think they should delay the meeting or not? Simply leave yes or no in the comments. I want to know what my audience believes. Again, simply yes or no. Let's get the comment section going. And Taylor, where can they find you?
Yeah, find us over on Instagram or on TikTok. We're at Life Goal Investments, doing daily videos.
Yep. And don't forget, if you want to get an introduction, there's their website and a quick introduction. But yes, follow him on IG. He puts out these 60-second clips that are 10 minutes of value. You won't regret it. Thanks, buddy.
You're the man, Michael.